Yes. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Blanca Carrasco. I'm going to be sharing my share. Okay. I hope you can all see this. Yes. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being here this morning. We are very, very happy to welcome Ben Donenberg. Thank you, Ben, for being here with us this morning. And I welcome Ricardo Villarreal de Silva, who's a board member of the society and who graciously accepted my invitation to help me out this morning in introducing Ben and monitoring the chat so that any questions or comments you might want to share, please do it on the chat, and Ricardo will be helping us with it. As president of the Society for Crypto-Judaic Studies, I welcome you again this morning. And for those of you who maybe have not been to one of our presentations or are barely getting to know the society, we are an organization that fosters research. We network. We network with people. We bring people together so that they can share ideas and exchange information, everything that has to do with crypto Jews of Iberian origins or any other Jewish communities around the world. And through the society, we have been reached out people from all over the world that are telling us and sharing amazing stories of their ancestors. The same thing that happened in New Spain, it replicated in many other parts of the world. So this is an amazing world that we're immersed, and I'm so proud to be part of it. As you see, we have this Cantor lecture series, and it was done through a generous donation of Mr. Larry Cantor, who's supporting us financially to have these lectures available to you. Please know that all the monies that we recover from these lectures are used towards our in-person conference. Last year in August, we held our in-person conference in Los Angeles. Ben was part of that, and we fell in love with his presentation that we asked him to share it again, and this time through Zoom so that many more people will have access to it. And as Ben is doing it this time in April, we're bringing in Ilan Estavans, who's writing a book about El Iluminado. And in May, we're having Douglas Shar, another board member, who's very immersed in learning about the gypsies in Spain and how they themselves are learning about their crypto-Jewish hidden past. So you don't want to miss. You don't want to miss our Cantor lectures. Please mark your calendars for our 36th conference, fully online. So 1 year we have it online. The following year we'll have it in person. So in October this year, a whole Sunday will be filled with amazing presentations and art and music. So look into that. The next in-person conference, if everything goes well, will be in New Orleans in 2027. So again, the Cantor lecture helps us to have the resources to bring in-person conferences. And again, be on the lookout for our amazing events and lectures. Membership appeal. Because of me living here in El Paso, the University of Texas El Paso used to have a print shop, and that print shop used to extend services to anybody who would like to print books. A local bookstore reached out to us, and he said, Blanca, we have a lot of copies, and you might not see it. I need to remove my
background.
my background, but I'm holding a book right here, And this book is about 500 pages, and it's the Carvajal family, the Jews in the Inquisition in New Spain in the 16th century by Alfonso Toro. And because of him reaching out to us, we purchased several books, and we're going to be mailing you one of these copies, Ben, thanking you for helping us this morning. And so I'm going to be needing your mailing address. But the membership appeal is if you have not yet become a member of the society, and if you would like to do that at a sustaining level of $110 per year, we will mail you one of these amazing books. Again, over 500 pages is an amazing book. And of course, you're going to be getting the jalapit for the spring and summer is coming, is getting ready to be mailed. So every member receives a copy, printed copy of our beautiful magazines. And again, I'm going to hold them. You cannot see them, but I'm holding the magazine here. So twice a year, you'll get a printed magazine. But again, as this membership appeal, if you renew at the $110 level or you join at the $110 level, we will mail you the copy of this amazing book. If you want to know what the status of your membership, if you're a member right now, please reach out to Donna Medina, jasmine.dm@gmail.com and ask her, when is my membership up for renewal? And she'll be more than happy to tell you where you're standing on. So that again, please consider helping us out. Any monies will go towards, again, our conferences. And if you haven't received yet La Granada, our free electronic newsletter, please go to Crypto-Juice, the same for the membership. Go to cryptojuice.com. You will find past editions of Jalapits. You will connect with us and definitely get our free electronic La Granada or join us. So I'm going to stop my share. And now I'm going to formally introduce Ricardo, who will introduce Ben. Ricardo, please take it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Blanca. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending upon where you are, of course. It's my pleasure to introduce Ben Donenberg, the director of the Shakespeare Center in Los Angeles, whom the Society of Crypto-Judaic Studies had the pleasure of meeting at the LA conference. The Shakespeare Center is dedicated to bringing Los Angeles innovative, world-class theatrical productions of Shakespeare and other great works, while also providing high-quality arts education and workforce development programs for underserved youth, veterans, and formerly incarcerated individuals. Their mission reflects a powerful belief that engagement with the arts strengthens communities and can truly change lives. Director Donenberg's work in the theater has earned both local awards, national recognitions from organizations such as the Actors Equity Association, the NAACP, the Los Angeles Drama Critics Circle, the California Theater Association, and the Mayor of Los Angeles. In addition, Director Donenberg was appointed to the National Council of the Arts, serving a 6-year term beginning in 2006 after I repeat, unanimous approval by the United States Senate. Beyond the stage, Director Donenberg has lectured on theater aesthetics at the University of Southern California, the Huntington Library, and the SCLA's Willpower Teaching Training Seminars. He holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy from the University of Southern California and is also a graduate of the Juilliard School's Drama Division. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Director Ben Donenberg.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, Blanca. And or I should say good morning or whatever time of day it is you are in out there at the in the virtual diaspora. I was really grateful when Seth Ward initially very kindly accepted a rather unconventional paper for presentation at the 2025 conference in August in Beverly Hills. And I was even more surprised when Blanca kindly invited me to present my thoughts again for people who may not have been able to attend the conference. And I've just received so much supportive feedback that I actually just decided to double down on my research and recently traveled to Portugal so I could see what I was talking about and learn what else I might discover. One of the main ideas of my interpretation of The Merchant of Venice that I will share with you has to do with a very small town in the mountains of Portugal. And I had a great trip, and I'm thinking there's so much more now to learn. I've titled my talk Shakespeare's Secret Jews. And it's very important to me that everybody understand that I realize what I am talking about is a kind of historical fiction. I am not presenting anything here that I consider to be fact. These are all musings informed by historical information that comes from the kind of dramaturgical investigations that I do when I prepare to direct a play. In this instance, it's also informed by my Jewish practice. No one can say with real certainty that William Shakespeare of Stratford-upon-Avon, the son of a glove maker without any formal education past grade school, wrote all or even any of the plays that are attributed to him. There is an eternal debate about the Shakespeare authorship question, and it pits experts from all different academic worlds against each other on both sides of the question. Did Shakespeare write the plays? Didn't he write the plays? And the conversation always ends inconclusively. And in complete transparency, I have never met Shakespeare, and I've never met anyone who has. In 1987, two Supreme Court justices, Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens and Harry Blackmun, agreed to hear oral arguments about the Shakespeare authorship matter. And after listening to excellent presentations from both sides, they agreed that there was sufficient evidence to create reasonable doubt about Shakespeare's authorship. But in a kind of decision worthy of King Solomon, they held that for the sake of tradition, the man known as Shakespeare was still to be considered the author of the plays. And the important takeaway is that there's enough evidence to call into question whether Shakespeare is the Shakespeare he seems to be. What we do know about the playwright known as William Shakespeare is that he or she wrote many characters that disguise themselves and are not who they seem to portray themselves to be. And we know Shakespeare's characters do things that aren't what they seem to be doing. And they seem to believe things that they don't really believe. And we know this because Shakespeare's characters tells us so. Richard III says, "I can smile and murder whiles I smile, and cry content to that which grieves my heart, and wet my cheeks with artificial tears, and frame my face to all occasions. I can add colors to a chameleon. Then there's the duplicitous Iago, seeming to be Othello's honest and trustworthy confidant while plotting to betray him. Then there are many of Shakespeare's characters who seem to be other genders than they really are. Viola in Twelfth Night, Rosalind in As You Like It are a couple of female characters. Portia in The Merchant of Venice, they pretend to be male characters, while, by the way, being portrayed by male actors. So you have male actors playing female characters pretending to be male characters. So the question is it so far-fetched then to wonder if the playwright who seems to be Shakespeare and wrote plays populated with characters who portray themselves as being someone other than they seem to be may have written a play that is not what it seems to be? Could The Merchant of Venice be a coded play with masked meanings that have gone undetected for 5 centuries? In other words, could The Merchant of Venice be a crypto play containing secret Jews? For centuries, actors, directors, and scholars have been wrestling with what is essentially the same line of questioning about The Merchant of Venice. How and why would the greatest playwright of the English humanist movement write a play fueled by the early Christian theological hatred of Jews? And how and why would this English humanist create a Shylock, a merciless, vengeful, Christian-hating Jewish loan shark, who, against the laws and principles of his own faith, which insists upon mercy, Shylock instead insists upon strict justice, demanding that his nemesis, Antonio, the Jew-hating Christian and title character of The Merchant of Venice, repay his defaulted loan in strict adherence with the terms and conditions of the bond they agreed to. In the unlikely instance that Antonio was to default on repayment of 3,000 ducats, he signed an agreement that allowed Shylock to demand a pound of flesh nearest to Antonio's heart to retire the debt. And when Antonio does default, Shylock does insist upon collecting according to those terms. How could Shakespeare write such a story and such a character? Well, there are 2 answers that have generally been offered to this line of questioning. The first is, well, since Jews were expelled from England upon the pain of death in 1290 and not readmitted until years after Shakespeare's death, Shakespeare never could have met a Jew. He was simply reflecting popular beliefs that Jews were loathsome usurers charging exorbitant interest rates. Never mind that the interest rates Jewish moneylenders were allowed to charge were highly regulated and taxed by authorities. So the more the moneylender was permitted to charge, the more taxes he paid. The second answer, which could be even worse, you tell me, is that Shakespeare didn't hate Jews. He wrote a hate-filled play to curry favor with Elizabeth's court because they and all of England hated Jews, and Shakespeare needed a box office hit. And I'm going to tell you something. Just yesterday at Shabbat services at my temple in Highland Park in Los Angeles, I noticed a suspicious man dressed all in black, videoing with his camera my synagogue. And I approached him and I asked him if he had questions about the synagogue. And he spoke words I did not understand, but sounded like chanting I had seen on the news, and he pointed to the sky. I went into the synagogue. I told the rabbi, I called 911, and police came and questioned him. And it turned out he's a YouTube channel proprietor who thought he could goad me into touching him while videoing me by preying on Islamophobia. And then he would have had me on tape assaulting him, and the police would be forced to arrest me and put me in jail. And I bring that up because anti-Semitism was box office in Elizabethan England, and it's fueling likes on YouTube today, 500 years later. But there's a better question to ask about how could Shakespeare write such a thing? What I began asking is, could it be possible or even perhaps likely that the man known as Shakespeare knowingly used deep-seated feelings of hatreds of Jews as a smokescreen to conceal a message that only those practicing crypto-Jews in his Elizabethan audience would appreciate? In that sense, could The Merchant be a secret crypto play? What if Shylock is a dark hero whose vengeful, merciless quest for a pound of flesh deliberately inflames and distracts his Christian audience in order to convey a deeper coded message about survival to the crypto Jews we know lived secretly in London at the time, but Shakespeare's neighbors did not? A close reading of the play through the imagined eyes of London's crypto Jews, with a little Tudor and Elizabethan Jewish geography tossed in for good measure, will reveal that The Merchant is filled with Hebrew puns and Jewish double entendre. Curiously, the man known as Shakespeare wrote a play premised on Talmudic texts and debates and crypto-Jewish historic events. So, the imagined eyes of the crypto-Jews of London become our decoder ring that illuminates the humanism in the play. So together we're going to put on our decoder glasses with our secret crypto-Jewish lenses. In 1532, the Spanish and Portuguese Inquisitions were in full swing. On my trip to Portugal recently, I visited places that housed courts of inquisition. I saw a torture chamber reminiscent for me of the concentration camp examining rooms I've seen in the Holocaust documentary films. At the same time, as these inquisitions were going on, up north a few kilometers, Henry VIII wanted to divorce his childless queen, Catherine of Aragon, who had previously been married to his brother Arthur for a short time. He wanted to divorce her so he could marry Anne Boleyn. But there was a catch. Henry needed the Pope to grant him an annulment. So he gathered his advisors together to craft an annulment argument. Together they agreed that the best strategy to convince the Pope to grant an annulment would be to employ an Old Testament argument. Mindful of the 1290 edict expelling Jews, Henry clandestinely consulted with Old Testament experts, two Venetian rabbis. And for reference purposes, Henry imported England's first Talmud and established the Regius Chair of Hebrew at Cambridge University. Today, the chair is occupied by Dr. Jeffrey Kahn. Dr. Kahn specializes in the meaning of Hebrew words during the Tudor and Elizabethan era. And I'm so happy to say that Dr. Kahn has kindly affirmed the meanings I have attributed to the Hebrew words I have discovered in Merchant and that I'll share with you, and assured me that my interpretation of these meanings are 100% plausible. Together, Henry and his rabbinic advisors crafted this argument that referenced a passage in Leviticus 20:21, which states that a man could not marry his brother's wife. Catherine of Aragon, as I mentioned before, had previously been married to Arthur, Henry's brother, for 6 months before he died of a sweating sickness. And I recommend all of you to see the film Hamnet, if you haven't, because you can see a great example of the sweating sickness. Henry proposed that Catherine's inability to bear him a male heir was a divine punishment for ignoring the biblical admonition in Leviticus and for living in sin. Unfortunately, it was very unlucky for Henry that the Pope happened to be Catherine's uncle. And Catherine's brother was Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. So whatever justification Henry could dream up would have been destined to failure. What is noteworthy, though, is that he offered an Old Testament justification and was coached to do so by Rabbi Elijah Menachem Halfan and Rabbi Mark Raphael of blessed memories. Responding to the Pope's rejection of his argument for the annulment, Henry tossed aside the pesky Catholic religion and proclaimed a new national religion, the Church of England. And he named himself supreme head, dissolved Catholic monasteries, seized their wealth, and confiscated their assets. Catholic worship was restricted, and so were Catholic property ownership and political rights. Catholic uprisings were suppressed. Catholic leaders, including monks and priests, were executed. Henry's English Reformation fueled an anti-Catholic hatred, and Catholics, just as the Jews, were forced to convert, giving rise to a secret Catholic population living alongside a secret Jewish one. It's within this milieu of crypto-Catholics and crypto-Jews living side by side below the radar that The Merchant of Venice is conceived and written. So a slight adjustment to our crypto decoder glasses now allows us to include the secret Catholics into our picture. And the man baptized at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford-upon-Avon as William Shakespeare would have been one of those crypto-Catholics. Perhaps not only is Merchant a crypto play, perhaps it's written by a crypto-Catholic that reflects an empathy towards London's crypto-Jews. While there may have been no publicly identified Jews in England, history teaches us that influential secret Jews passing as Christians lived quite well in Elizabeth's court. And there seem to be a few clues that the author of The Merchant of Venice was more than well acquainted with one of them. In fact, there's a pretty compelling case to be made that the man called Shakespeare wrote 26 of 154 sonnets to a crypto-Jewish woman who has come to be known as the Dark Lady of the Sonnets. The launch of the Spanish Inquisition in 1478 was followed by the Alhambra Decree, 1492, issuing Jews a royal ultimatum to convert or leave Spain. Many Spanish Jews refused to convert, fled to Portugal. The Portuguese Inquisition began shortly thereafter. But receiving an open written invitation from Sultan Bayezid II, many Jews fled Portugal to the Ottoman Empire, where they were able to live openly and prosper. Others fled to less hospitable places. Transcripts from the Portuguese Inquisition contain testimonials about crypto-Jews who fled Portugal and were living secretly in England. Roger Pryor's article, A Second Jewish Community in Tudor London, published in the Jewish Historical Studies by the Jewish Historical Society of England, notes that a good number of Sephardic merchants settled in London and established a secret congregation led by Antonio Fernandez Carvajal. And I think we all are entitled to a free book of 500 pages.
Yes.
And Mr. Bienveniste at our Society of Crypto-Judaic Studies noted at the conference in August that the first California Jew had the surname Carvajal. While this secret minion was meeting in London, King Henry prepared for his wedding to Anne Boleyn on January 25th, 1533. He wanted the finest musical consort in Christendom to play at his wedding. So he imported the Bassanio family, a musical consort from Venice. They were a crypto-Jewish family of musicians. And is it coincidence that the Merchant of Venice's leading romantic male character is named Bassanio? Even more interesting is the leader of the crypto-Jewish Bassanio musical consort had a daughter named Amelia Bassanio. And it is Amelia Bassanio who is widely accepted to be the Dark Lady of Shakespeare's sonnets. So much for Shakespeare never meeting a Jew. He was dating one and writing her love poetry. And it turns out that Amelia Bassanio was a writer too. She wrote a poem titled Salve Deus Rex Judeorum, Hail God, King of the Jews. Another prominent secret Jew was Queen Elizabeth's physician, Rodrigo Lopez. But before Queen Elizabeth employed Lopez, he was Robert Dudley's physician. Dudley was the first Earl of Leicester and Elizabeth's most intimate confidant. But Dudley wasn't only Elizabeth's confidant and the prior employer of Elizabeth's secret Jewish physician. Dudley was also England's first theater patron. He sponsored his own acting troupe, Leicester's Men, and built London's first theater in 1574. He created the template and blueprint for companies such as Shakespeare's Globe. With Leicester and Elizabeth's support, Rodrigo Lopez, a secret Portuguese Jew, rose to prominence, accumulated a fortune, enjoyed coveted access to the Queen, and most likely, my interpretation, attended plays at his old boss's theater, albeit maybe not on Friday nights. Lopez was granted a royal patent permitting him exclusive rights to import and distribute medicines. And we have a receipt, I say we, there is a receipt documenting a personal charitable contribution from Lopez to a synagogue in Antwerp. According to Dr. David Katz in his book, The Jews in the History of England, 1485 to 1850, Lopez was also a spy who provided Queen Elizabeth intelligence about political stirrings in Portugal and Spain. When Elizabeth's courtiers caught on and that some of Lopez's advice compromised English seafaring enterprises, they all turned on Lopez, trumped up an accusation of treason, and much worse than accusing him of being a traitor, they accused him of being a practicing Jew. After sequestering Lopez in the Tower of London to protect him for 7 months, Elizabeth reluctantly relented to political pressure and permitted Lopez's high-profile execution. Hanging was not enough for the Jew Rodrigo Lopez. He was to be hung, drawn, and quartered. Drawing and quartering, specifically beheading, made it certain that Lopez's Jewish soul would forever be severed and condemned. Addressing the accusation that he secretly practiced Judaism from the gallows, Lopez's final words on June 7th, 1594, or the 28th of Sivan in the year of 2167 on the Hebrew calendar, were, "I love the Queen as I love Jesus Christ." Shortly after Lopez's hanging, Shakespeare's Shylock appeared on stage. A small remote mountain village in Portugal also plays an important role and may offer a coded clue to Shakespeare's crypto storytelling. In 1917, little more than 100 years ago, Samuel Schwartz, a Polish mining engineer, was assigned to map the remote Portuguese mountain village. While doing so, he noted in his diary, he noticed unusual practices among many of the village's families. Everyone went to church on Sundays, but on Friday evenings, Schwartz wrote, many shut their doors and windows, light candles, drink wine, eat braided bread, and mumble words. The diary has yet to be translated into English. It's been translated in French, Portuguese, and Polish. And I'm hoping our society might be able to help me find somebody who could translate this to bring this very important document to English readers. Schwartz also writes in his diary that he met Baltazar Pereira de Souza. I'm not a good Spanish speaker, I apologize. A local merchant of the village who confessed that his family secretly practiced Judaism for centuries. The name of this remote mountain village is Belmont. It is a community with deep crypto-Jewish roots established in the 14th century after the 1391 Jewish massacre in Toledo, 2 centuries before Shakespeare. Belmont happens to be less than 100 kilometers from Crato, where Rodrigo Lopez was born. Today, Belmont is home to a crypto-Jewish museum that I had the opportunity to visit. It features the secret Jews of the Mediterranean. Perhaps not so coincidentally, Belmont is also home to the Merchant of Venice's leading female character, Portia. Shakespearean scholars dismiss Belmont as merely a fairy tale world. Charles Boyce writes, scholars have universally viewed Shakespeare's Belmont as a fictitious place, created as a vivid contrast to the crass commercial world of Venice. Shakespeare's practice of naming places and characters was deliberate. Names of characters often offer clues to characters' dispositions and inclinations. The names of locations hearken to specific qualities of identity. For instance, the Forest of Arden in As You Lake It has an apple orchard. Arden is an anglicized version of Eden, the Garden of Eden. Romeo is a hopeless romantic. Many of the characters' names in The Merchant of Venice are anglicized Hebrew and quite revealing. The Elizabethan and Sephardic pronunciation of Portia would have been closely akin to the Hebrew word parsha, meaning a section of the law. Is it a coincidence that Parsha disguises herself as a man, presents herself as a lawyer in the climactic scene of the play, and argues a section of the law in the Venetian court? In fact, the section of the law she cites, and that underscores the premise of the play, is specifically lifted directly from Talmudic tractate Rosh Hashanah 17b. This tractate, known as the 13 Attributes of Mercy, describes mercy as the essence of God. The rabbis debating the Talmudic tractate come to the conclusion that mercy must season strict justice. And Portia uses these words in the courtroom to try to convince Shylock to back off his insistence on strict justice. Mercy is above this sceptered sway. It is enthroned in the heart of kings. It is an attribute to God himself, and earthly power doth then show likest gods when mercy seasons justice. Parsha invokes the word mercy 5 times and attribute twice in the quality of mercy appeal to Shylock. Strict justice entitles Shylock the award of the pound of flesh nearest Antonio's heart, as specified in the bond. Shylock ultimately backs down when she quotes from the Talmud and says, "Give me my principle and let the Christian go." There's a curious crypto cross-reference that's critical, and it's a reference to an unseen character of the play called Old Bellario of Padua. He never appears in the play. He's only referenced. Portia refers to Old Bellario of Padua as her kinsman when she dispatches her handmaiden Nerissa and her servant Balthazar to consult with Old Bellario of Padua to try and find a legal remedy to the pound of flesh dilemma. Independently and unbeknownst to each other, the character of the Duke of Venice also sends to Old Bellario of Padua for help with the same dilemma. No scholar has asked the question, why do both of these characters reach out to Old Bellario of Padua? So I asked myself, what's going on in Padua? Why did Shakespeare make Old Bellario of Padua Portia's kinsman? Turns out that the University of Padua was established in 1222, and it was the only papal colony that defied the papal bull mandating ghettoization of Jews based on the necessity for academic freedom. Before, during, and after the Inquisition, the university continued its practice of conferring degrees upon Jews. It was home to a Hebrew printing press. Portia's courtroom tactic to invoke Talmudic law in tandem with secular Venetian law at Shylock's trial comes from old Bellario of Padua, her cousin. I wonder if, for centuries, it is possible that the dramatic conclusion of this play, Shylock's forced conversion, has been misrepresented purely as a humiliation of Shylock. Is it really a simplistic binary distinction between the defeat of the Jewish God of strict justice and the triumph of the Christian God Jesus, who proclaims a gospel of love and mercy? I have a little time left to focus on two tricks and a reversal that Shakespeare had up his sleeve. The first trick is that Portia and her handmaiden Nerissa are double agents. They disguise themselves as men. Portia not only seems to be a male lawyer, she also seems to be a Christian. Shakespeare drops a number of hints that Portia is a crypto-Jew. Most significant is that Belmont, the center of crypto-Jewry, is identified as Portia's home. It is to Belmont that our Bassanio, a crypto-Jewish family name, sails to woo and marry Portia. And just as Portia's name has Hebrew phonetic resonance, Nerissa, her handmaiden's name, which can be pronounced Nerisha and translates to candlewoman, has phonetic resonance. And Portia's servant, Balthazar, in Hebrew, translates to protect the crown. There's another character that appears in the play briefly, whose name is Tubal. His name translates to baptism. When Portia dispatches Nerissa to old Bellario of Padua for legal advice, she says Bellario is her cousin. In 2013, a paper titled The Tale of Belmont's Crypto-Jews by Ignacio Steinhardt explains in Belmont, the word for Jews is familia, and a fellow Jew is a parente, a relative. If Portia is a crypto-Jew, old Bellario, her cousin, is a Jew too. And I would argue, they both, the Duke of Venice and Portia, reach out to him for the solution to their dilemma because he's a Talmudic scholar at the University of Padua. It seems to the Elizabethan Christians in Shakespeare's audience, all's well that ends well. Shylock gets his comeuppance when he's forced to convert. Shylock's daughter, Jessica, converts of her own volition and finds true love. But all that glistens is not gold. After all, the play involves not just identified Jews, but crypto-Jews as well. So there are other secrets left to tell. Jews were not permitted to own or bequeath property to their children in the ghetto. The Pope reserved the right to confiscate all Jewish goods. But because Jessica chose to convert, Shylock is mandated, when he is forced to convert, to draw a deed of gift and bequeath half his wealth to his new Christian daughter. If not for Jessica's conversion and her flight from the ghetto, the bequest would have been impossible. And here is our ultimate irony. The Hebrew phonetic equivalent to the name Shylock, Shylock, means a gift to her. And where does Shylock's daughter receive her father's gift? In Belmont. Elizabethan audiences cheered when Shylock the Jew was forced to convert. The conversion of his daughter was even more evidence of Christian triumph. But it's only because she converts that she inherits Shylock's wealth, and the fortune is kept in the family. a gift to her. And while Shylock must seem to live as a Christian, the crypto-Jews in Shakespeare's audience were seeming to do so too. Since The Merchant of Venice is technically categorized as a Shakespearean comedy because it ends in marriage, I would suggest that it's the crypto-Jews and Shakespeare, a crypto-Catholic, who have the last laugh. That's my take. My take on this historical fiction, trying to bring in, different thoughts about what we know about crypto-Judaism, Shakespeare, and the lives of the people living at that time. And I'm happy now to take questions that I probably can't answer, but okay.
Yeah,
Ricardo,
please type your questions in the chat.
I'm turning it over to you, Ricardo.
Yes, so please type your
Whatever
questions.
questions I can't answer, you and Blanca can answer.
Boy, there's a lot here. If I forgive me if I may start while people wonder. I don't know where to start, but I have so many questions. I suppose if 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 this were intentional by Shakespeare,
Yeah.
what was the source? Forgive me, my dogs are going in and out. Like suggest that maybe he was, or he had friends, or was taking a position. What might you guess was the reason?
Well, we know that Henry VIII imported the first Talmud. That was before Shakespeare's time. And the widely accepted belief that Amelia Bassanio Lanier was a crypto-Jewish woman, and she was the Dark Lady of the Sonnets. Mm-hmm. And you've got Robert Dudley, who was the employer of the crypto-Jew Rodrigo Lopez before he shuttled him over to Queen Elizabeth. My guess is that there was a very robust, you have the whole synagogue there. There was a robust crypto-Jewish community living below the radar, and Shakespeare must have been acquainted with them. He was writing poems to one of them. I don't know anything for sure, but that's my guess. My guess is that. And the consistency of his Renaissance humanism throughout all of his other plays is what really drew me to the deep investigation, because it just didn't seem to make sense. As I said, why would he write a play like this? But it was illegal upon pain of death to show sympathy to Jews. And so he found a way to do it. And he must have been resentful being forced to pretend to be a member of the Church of England. So all of these kinds of secret and lives going on and all of that, I was really honestly looking for a way to align the Renaissance humanist principles of all of his plays in this play. That's what I was looking to do. Awesome. And it's my transparently admitted bias.
Sure. Well, which is important in terms of doing research, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. We have a question from Barbara. So who wrote Shakespeare's plays?
Somebody by the name of Shakespeare.
Yeah. I believe there was allusion to, I think earlier, that this question has been around for a long time.
It's been around for a long time, and people are willing to die on the sword defending their answers. My opinion is we have these wonderful plays, and I'm going to find ways to do them. I don't really know. I did join the group called the Shakespeare Authorship Society, which questions and doubts whether Shakespeare, the man baptized as Shakespeare at Holy Trinity Church, actually wrote the plays. But no one's ever going to know. They don't even know if Shakespeare's body is in Shakespeare's tomb.
Yeah.
and no one wants to go look.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. What I actually had as part of my talk, but I took it out, was that is it possible whoever wrote these plays was no dummy.
Right.
So could they have purposely encrypted their identity forever? Is this author purposely a crypto author?
Sure.
It would seem so because he's hidden or she has hidden their identity. Oh,
Ben, you cut out there for a little bit. It kind of got muted, sounded like, but
oh.
okay, cool. But just towards the end, we have there's another question. What triggered you to start this research, this fascinating research?
Well, I just couldn't, after working on these plays for my entire life, I just didn't want to accept the fact that the play was just an anti-Semitic reflection of beliefs from that time, because I
Mm.
didn't think that the person writing these plays was that shallow. So it's my own personal bias. I just thought there has to be more to this. And literally, I mean, I'm 69 years old. I went to Juilliard in the late 70s and early 80s. There was a wonderful teacher of mine named Boris Tumarin, who was a sort of icon of the Yiddish theater in New York.
Mhm.
And Boris was grooming me to play Shylock in my fourth year of Juilliard, which would have been 1981. But he passed away in 1979, and I never got to it. But I had begun research that far back in the 1970s on this play, reading everything I possibly could read about it. And the more I read about it, the more I just became convinced that it just couldn't be that shallow.
Okay, let's see. We have another question. I will just read it, and I'm gonna present them in the order in which I received them. Please let me know if you don't want me to include your name, but I'll not. So, Daphne, on what basis is it assumed that Shakespeare was of Catholic background?
Well, he was baptized in a Catholic church when he was born,
Okay.
um, Holy Trinity Church. His father was a Catholic alderman and glove maker. He was born into a Catholic family. The person that really was William Shakespeare, there are baptism records of
Okay.
the church of his ceremony. Now, whether
Okay.
that's the guy who wrote the play or not, you don't know. But William Shakespeare was born and baptized.
Okay. Awesome. All right. I have another question, and it's going to be two-part because I'm going to add a question to it. Did Mary Sidney have any crypto connections you know of? And my question is, forgive my ignorance, I don't know who Mary Sidney is.
Oh, God, you know what? I've come upon her, but I didn't focus on her.
Okay. The person, iPhone, if there's a bit more detail that can be provided, that would be great.
Let me look. Let me see what I.
Sure.
Oh, Philip Sidney and Edmund Spenser and William Shakespeare, notable authors of the day.
All
Yeah,
right.
she was the Countess of Pembroke. Some people think Sidney was the author of Shakespeare's plays, and that
All right.
it could have been a woman. Um, could have been. You know, the authorship question to me, as it relates to this topic,
Mhm.
is not really that important, because what I have found in the play, in the Hebrew names, and every just about every scene, I didn't go into it here, every scene has references to Crypto-Judaic history. Um, uh, I won't go into it now because we want to do other questions, but I can go scene by scene in this play and show you references to the Torah in them, leading to the next thing that happens in the next scene. And there, Portia is kind of um, likened to Dona Gracia Mendez.
Mhm.
And at that time, at the very time that this play was written, I mean, not the time, yeah, play, um, there was a huge embargo on the Mediterranean that Dona Gracia Mendez asked the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire to place because of the way Jews were being treated, and they shut down all of the commerce on the Mediterranean for almost 2 years. And then at the end of the play, Antonio's ships don't come in. That's why he defaults on his bond. And then at the very end of the play in Belmont, Portia mysteriously receives a letter saying to Antonio, his ships are coming through again. And that, of course, is when Dona Gracia Mendez lifts the embargo with the Sultan on the Mediterranean, and all the ships come through, and Antonio's wealth is restored, and he has all the money that he needed to pay the bond. So there's a lot going on in the play and history that is more interest to me than whether Mary Sidney or, the different earls and dukes wrote the Shakespeare plays.
Right. I think along those same lines, there's an addition to Mary Sidney uh, made, a point made, and then a question kind of related to Shakespeare. And also, I suppose it's true of whoever actually wrote it. So one question is, if Mary, or a statement rather, if Mary Sidney were a crypto Jew, it would make sense given the way the play was written. And the question from Crystal, I believe, forgive me. Oh, no, yes, Crystal. Could Shakespeare himself have been a crypto Jew? I mean, I know, Ben, you noted, well, he's baptized and we have records. And yeah, but that happened to a lot of crypto Jews, right?
That's right.
Almost all of them have been baptized for the most part, and there's some behaviors. So I think I know it's not necessarily possible to answer explicitly this question, but would you say evidence might suggest that either whoever wrote the play could have been? Because it seems to require, you know, significant knowledge in order
Yeah.
to code
Yeah.
it, actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of coding in there. And it could have been, I mean, there are articles. There are articles written saying that Shakespeare was a Jewish woman. There have been articles written that, yeah, Shakespeare was himself a crypto Jew. All of
Mm.
that has been speculated. It's possible.
Yeah, it's
But
possible.
who knows? But that's what I'm trying to say. Why I said up front, this is historical fiction. I'm not presenting anything as fact because I will be hung, drawn, and quartered by many academics
Right,
if I say anything can be actually known about
right,
this. What
right.
I know is the history of what was happening at the time. What I know is in the play, and I have discovered a lot of references in the play that would lead one to believe that this was concurrent.
Yeah. And I think my own personal opinion, forgive me, is the plausibility and the question is also important for, forgive me, for me and families like mine who have these behaviors and who were baptized, but still did many of these behaviors on Fridays and Saturdays. And I think it's an honest question. It's like, is it coincidence or is it not? And I know in this case with Shakespeare, it's more difficult because, as far as I know, I don't have any descendants, to know what carried on and what didn't. But it's a dynamic, I think, internally about this is unique. But I don't want to say is it real, but is it meaningful in that sense of supporting this idea of being a crypto Jew? So,
Yeah, it's
um,
certainly it's certainly possible.
right. If others don't mind, as we wait for others with more questions, I jotted down some, so forgive me. So, but I think so. Henry VIII, did anything change towards the Jews after the development of the Church of England?
No.
No.
Of
Okay.
as a matter of fact, the expulsion edict of 1290 has never been repealed. It is
Oh.
still technically illegal. But during the Reformation, Parliament tried to repeal it and failed because of anti-Semitic um, sentiments. However, Jews were admitted back,
Mhm.
legally admitted back to do business and have commerce and raise families and all of that.
All right. Awesome. Let's see. Boy, I did have one more, and what was? Oh, I know. So, presume that it was written by Shakespeare or someone else who wasn't crypto-Jewish. Well, I'll give you hard to tell, but did Shakespeare in any of his other plays show any kind of deep knowledge of some either subgroup or ethnic group for which he was not a part of, or she, or whoever it may have been?
I will share that I was doing a production of As You Like It, which I
Mhm.
mentioned. They leave the court and go to the Forest of Arden, aka the Garden of Eden. And Jaques, a French name for the equivalent of perhaps Jacob, has um, a, has a conundrum that he presents that has been unresolved throughout the history of Shakespeare scholarship. At one point in the forest, he delivers a letter or a poem to Duke Senior, who has been banished by his brother and created this group of merry men in the forest where they live in accordance and rhythms with nature. And Jaques is a hermit that wanders in and out
Mhm.
and reflects on the passage of time with a sense of melancholy. And he presents them a poem. And in the poem, there's a phrase that is Duke, that is performed as Duke Dame, Duke Dame, Duke Dame. And the Duke Senior says to Jaques, "What is this Duke Dame?" And Jaques replies, "It's a Greek invocation to call fools into a circle." Because as they were reading it, all the actors came and stand in a circle, and they're all looking, trying to figure out what this is. So he makes fun of all of them and says it's a Greek invocation, but it's not Greek.
Yeah.
There's no Greek scholar that can find out what it means. So my argument is you need to parse it. It's
Mhm.
Duke and Dami, my blood, my money. It's Hebrew. I think
Ah,
Dami is Hebrew. And if you parse the word in half and stop saying Duke Dame, but you
yeah.
say Duke Dame, you can say it's Hebrew because Jaques has 50 million references to the Old Testament in the play. So I would say he was a crypto Jew as well because he's a hermit that lives by himself in the forest.
Sure.
And that was brought to me when we were doing the play by a fantastic actress that I had hired to do it named Diane Venora. Diane was the first female to ever play Hamlet for Joseph Papp in New York. She's a massive Shakespearean expert. She was in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. She played Lady Capulet. She's played all the Shakespeare plays, and she went in deep on Jaques and brought to me, "What is this?" And I said, "You know what, Diane? I think it's Hebrew."
Yeah.
Because she told me Jaques was Jewish. She was playing Jaques and she was convinced that he was Jewish because of all of his references. And I said, well, that could mean that's Hebrew. That's how it goes. Who
Right.
knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
But yes, but there are so many references. But Shakespeare, the boy who grew up and would have gone to grade school was also raised on the Bible. So he would have known references to the Old Testament as well.
but is it plausible that, in your opinion, that his what he knew of the Bible, uh, like allowed him to code it to the extent that he did, perhaps in The Merchant of Venice? I'm not sure of others. I
I
mean,
mean, how could he pick a character named Tubal that means baptize to be Shylock's best friend? That can't be a coincidence. How can
yeah,
Shylock mean a gift to her and he bequeaths things to her? How can
yeah,
Nerissa be Ner Isha, candlewoman, Balthazar, protect the crown, Portia, a section of the law? You just keep going.
yeah,
They didn't, Hebrew was not widely taught in Elizabethan England.
right. Awesome. And if I may, so what's, if you can, what's next in terms of this particular endeavor or something in the
Well,
future?
I have a friend named Rabbi Michael Berenbaum.
Mhm.
He was part of the founding of the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and he's a leading expert on anti-Semitism.
Mhm.
And I spoke with Rabbi Berenbaum about my idea, and he said, "You have to write a book, but the book that you write has to be formatted as a Talmudic tractate, so that I put Shakespeare's text in the middle. On one side, I have traditional criticism of the play on one column of the page. Then I have my Judaic interpretation of the play on the page. And then I have a glossary underneath just explaining the words. So I want to write a Talmudic tractate on the Merchant of Venice when I retire. But I would really love to get Samuel Schwartz's diary translated into
Yeah,
English. It's in Portuguese, it's in French, and it's in Polish. And
yeah,
it's a real testimony to the crypto Jews. So we have to just find someone who will translate it. And if it costs me money, I would, try and raise the money.
yeah. There is a member of the society, Blanca, I cannot remember Mark, at the University of Kansas, and he's been
Schoeneger?
involved. Mark, yeah,
It's a
there's
hard last
someone.
name to pronounce. It's Schoeneger or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, but Mark, and he's been involved in translating different documents. I don't know Polish, but I can once this is over, if we stay on, I can maybe get some contact information, see if he might be able to help, for sure.
This man, Samuel Schwartz, was a real important figure
Hmm.
because he underwrote. I went into another town, the oldest synagogue in Portugal, which was converted into a like a feed storage place and all of that. It's in a little village. Samuel Schwartz, with his own money, paid to restore it. And it's just
Hmm.
like a little storefront. There's a mikvah in one storefront and a little empty square space. But he went around and did stuff in Portugal to preserve the Jewish history. And there's a little bust of him at the Crypto-Judaic Museum in Belmont, which, by
Belmont.
the way, is a tiny little village.
Yeah.
And I went to a minyan there. I made the 10th of the minyan. And then the next
Awesome.
day, the next day I left Belmont and I was traveling, and I stopped in Trancuso. It's a little village, and there was a big market. And as I was walking through, the man who I sat next to in the minyan called out to me because I didn't speak Portuguese and he didn't speak English. We spoke broken Hebrew to each other, and he had a booth, and it's 40 minutes away, and he called out to me, "Yehudi, Yehudi," and I turned around and I looked at him, and he sold me a winter coat. I didn't really need the coat, but I.
Awesome. So I'll tell you what, thank you for reminding me of Blanca. Let me just read some of the comments from Barbara. Excellent talk. I'm going to listen to it again. Thank you so much. Excellent and
Thank you, Barbara.
thought-provoking. Thank you. And it's from Harriet Porto. Let's see. Very, very helpful from Sarah. I like this. I come from an Antwerp merchant family that is credited with printing Shakespeare's sonnets in Leiden, and also they printed Hebrew Bibles for the Huguenots. All the webs you describe overlap the merchant webs. Very, very interesting.
Wow.
Let's see. There's some more. This has been awesome. We'll have to listen to the rest on recording. Thank you so much for this presentation. Love, a cantor in Virginia. And that was from Cantor Sarah Beck Berman.
I really appreciate everybody listening and taking time on a Sunday to
Awesome.
hear the thoughts. Some
Blanca, there's no more questions or statements if you want to.
Yes, so I took off the background, so hopefully I can show the book because I'm so excited to mention about this awesome opportunity for us to get this book into your hands, and definitely, Ben, thank you very much. I don't know if you have time to read 500 pages of an amazing story of the Carvajals, but
I'm reading 3 books about the Inquisition right now, so just
okay.
put it on. Just pile
So
Killing it.
definitely something again, because of this opportunity, I wanted to make sure that the people who are in love, of the topic of what the society, the vision of the society, that they, if they don't have one yet, a copy for their library, to to get a hold of one. And I will mention it again for those who came in late. If you don't mind me sharing that presentation again, real quick, about the membership appeal.
Sure.
Um, let me just share again. If you are not a member yet and you would like to become a member at the sustaining level, which is $110, we will mail you a copy of one of these books.
It's
And
going to cost you $110 to pay for postage.
hopefully not.
No, no, it's a book. I think they get a particular rate, don't they?
Yes,
500
yes,
pages.
yes. But I mean, I got so excited. The owner of the bookstore, he goes, Blanca, why don't you run a reading session here in El Paso? Invite
Mhm.
people from Ciudad Juarez, from New Mexico, and maybe do something with the book. I'm really thinking that for the summer, particularly the festival where we just read the Book of Lamentations, that might be an opportunity to do something with the Holocaust Museum, and bring people interested in the topic of the Carvajals and the Inquisition to to talk about this. So again, something to consider. The Jalapid, Corinne Brown, she couldn't make it today, but Corinne Brown she always does an amazing job with our magazine. The one for the spring, the summer is about to go out to print and will be dispersed in May. So the members will definitely get their printed version. And so this is an amazing opportunity again to consider becoming a member if you haven't done it yet, or to renew your membership. And if you want to inquire as to when you need to renew, please reach out to Donna Medina, who's helping us out, reaching out to our members. Uh, she's a jazz lady. That's what her email has, the jazz word on it. So Jasmine Dana Medina at the DM at gmail.com, and she will be more than happy to tell you when is the time for you to renew, and in hopes that you will consider supporting us this way. And reach out to us. Any questions to connect you with people? We get a lot of requests to trying to connect, people who have discovered about their ancestors. Ricardo, do you want to say something about the tapestry, or the design behind you and your background? I mentioned something about the rooster.
Yes. Well,
Uh,
this is from Tránsito in Toledo, but I will turn this off and speak. So this is a rooster that my great aunt made sometime in the late 1890s or early 2020s. And it has, to me, it has a lot to do with what Director Donenberg was talking about, the, for lack of a better term, evidence versus does it suggest what we think it does or not. And it's also, to me, the sense of importance of coding. The most I showed this, I've had it since I was about 15. Yeah, my mother gave it to me. It was handmade, and I've showed it at the synagogue when I brought it for a presentation, and some of the women there said, that's not needlepoint for one, and secondly, they said that the thread work is absolutely exquisite, like the material. And Juanita, she had a loom because he grew up in a on a parcel of land that was granted to my at that time my maternal great grandmother's father's family, last name of Antonio Villarreal. It's on the Texas side of the border near across from Rio Grande City. Anyway, I showed this to a rabbi because I thought, why would this woman in the 1800s do a rooster? Why not just flowers? Forgive me for being sexist, forgive me. But and what is this thing that the rooster is standing on? And this gets the idea of a code. The rabbi, after she told me what she saw, says, in quotes, if you know, you know. And it so happens that it can be argued that those bits underneath the rooster's talons, almost overlap completely the tetragrammaton, Yud He Vav He. The Yud is missing, but is implied, but Yud He Vav He can fit. And this hung in the doorway in the glass window at the front of the house. And there was other things that my family did up until 1949. But and a rooster, like, well, okay, why a rooster? And I saw roosters in the synagogue of Great Rome last May, and they were made and they were on mapot from the Spanish Jews that were accepted in the synagogue of Rome after the expulsion of the Jews. Like there was I think I found like there was like 10 of them. And I I couldn't believe it because like, again, this gets to Ben's like, is it or is it not? And you know, anyway, so but that's the rooster that she made and some of the I think arguably perhaps some of the code in it. But
Yeah,
again, if you know, you know.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank
I'll
you very
say there's
much.
some more. Lillian, thank you for this insightful presentation. And okay, and I see you answered the other if a person wants to hear the show.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So again, you will be receiving the recording. If not tonight, definitely tomorrow. Be on the lookout for that. Uh, Feel free to share with anybody who might be interested in learning. We will most appreciate if they will give us a donation. Always refer them to the cryptojuice.com and they can do a donation for us. But feel free to share. I mean, we want people to get to know about these amazing lectures and get excited, of this new learning. So we don't want to keep it to ourselves, but always consider supporting us
Wait.
financially. Um, I think we committed to not go beyond an hour and a half in order to be mindful to our presenters and to our the people participating. So I wish you the best. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Best wishes for the new season, the spring flowering and all greens around you. I'm so excited about that. Be on the lookout for April's cantor lecture. El Iluminado, talking about the Carvajal, it's gonna be about the Carvajal, El Mozo, and the gypsies in Spain in May who have just discovered through the DNA that indeed they have crypto-Jewish ancestry. So many more to come. The conference fully online in October, and check us out. Thank you very much. And Ben, if you might want to stay to share information with Ricardo about who might be helpful in translating the works that you were mentioning.
yeah.
If you don't mind, or unless you need to
Sure.
leave, I'll connect you through email.
I'm happy to say happy Passover, everyone.
Exactly. Yes. Happy Passover. Happy Easter. And thank you again for being here and joining us on your a little bit of your Sunday. Thank you all. I'm gonna stop the recording right now.